Good morning, friends. Myself, Manoj Kumar Chitade, Assistant Professor, Hirashugar Institute of Technology, Nirsoshi. In this session, we people are going to discuss about the wireless LAN. If you look at today's world, that a wireless communication is growing fastly. That is a one technology where the people are interested to use the devices that are not at all using cables for connections, where the people are interested to use these wireless devices everywhere. When it comes to the IEEE 802.11, that specification is used for establishing, defining some sort of specifications for a wireless LAN. IEEE has defined the specification for a wireless LAN called IEEE 802.11, which covers the physical as well as the data link layers here. Here we people are going to discuss the architecture, the MAC sublayer as well as the physical layer. The 802.11 standard that defines two kinds of services. One is a basic service set, another one is a extended service set. Here the basic service set is a building block of a wireless LAN, we can say that consists of a stationary node, the mobile nodes or stations, as well as optional base station, that is a central base station. We simply call that one as the access point. A BSS without access point is called as a ad hoc network, and BSS with an access point is called as infrastructure network. A BSS without an access point, okay, these are standalone networks, and they cannot send the data to other BSS. Okay, we call them as ad hoc networks here. The stations or the nodes, they are able to locate the another nodes, and they are agreed to be part of a BSS. In another case, we have a BSS with an access point here, that is called as a infrastructure network here. Here we have a basic service set. One is a ad hoc network that doesn't have a access point here, and we have a infrastructure network that has a access point, that is the optional stationary node we have. Here we have these nodes are capable of identifying or locating these other devices, and they simply agree to be a part of this particular network. Okay, and these networks may not, these station may not able to send the data to other stations that are a part of other BSS here. Okay, here in case of a access point, these access points are in turn connected to some sort of a LAN. These stations are able to communicate with other stations also. The second one, we have a extended service set. Here this extended service set is made up of two or more BSS we have with a access point. These access point are in turn connected through this distribution system. Here we people are not at all putting some sort of a restrictions, that is your 802.11 doesn't put a restriction on this distribution system. It can be any IEEE standard, that is or it may be a IEEE LAN, okay, or for example we can use a Ethernet also. Here the nodes that are a part of this extended service set are nothing but we have a mobile stations as well as the stationary node. These stationary nodes are nothing but the access points here. Here when these BSS are connected, when these BSSs are connected, the station that are within the communication range, they are able to send as well as receive the data directly without use of this access points here, without the use of a access point. Suppose if a one station that is communicating with another station that is a part of another BSS, on that case the communication should and must be made through this access point only. Here the 802.11 that defines three different types of stations based on their mobility. One is a no transition. In case of this particular scenario, we have the stationary nodes, or we have some sort of mobile nodes. The nodes are not at all moving, or in some cases these nodes simply moves within the same BSS. On that case, these nodes belongs to the these are the type of stations that belongs to no transition. The next one, we have a BSS transition. Here the node moves from one BSS to another BSS, but they simply moves within a ESS, that is a one extended service only. Okay. The next one, we have the extended service set ESS transition mobility. In that case, station with a ESS transition mobility can move from one ESS to another here. But we cannot guarantee that communication is the continuous whenever the node moves from one ESS to another ESS here. If you look at this particular picture, that simply depicts the relationship between the LLC and MAC protocol as well as the physical layer. Okay. When here we people are the 802.11 that defines two MAC protocol. Okay, two MAC protocol. First one, we have a distributed coordination function, and the second one is a point coordination function. Here in a distributed here that 802.11 this particular standard defines a contention free services as well as a contention based services here. Okay. Here this point coordination function is implemented on top of this distributed coordination function here, just to provide some sort of a high priority for this particular protocol or a function, we can say that. When it comes to this distributed coordination function, that simply implements or uses the CSMA-CA as this access method. In case of a wireless LAN, we people are using the CSMA-CD mechanism, that is a collision detection. In case of a wireless LAN, we people are using this collision avoidance because of some reasons. Okay. When it comes to this wireless LAN, to detect any kind of a collision, station should and must be able to send as well as receive the data continuously at the same time. Okay. This here we can say that this can mean a costly station as well as we need some sort of the higher bandwidth requirement. The second problem that is associated with why we people are not at all using this CSMA CD, that is, in some cases we may not able to detect the collision because of the hidden station problem. We will go through this what exactly mean by hidden station in the coming slides here. The next one, the distance between the station may be the great one. Okay, as a signals travel, it simply loses its strength, and that is a signal fading can occur, and that could prevent one station at a one end from hearing that a collision at the other end. Okay, here if you look at this CSMA a CA mechanism, how we people are avoiding that collision here. Whenever a station wants to send some sort of a frame over the channel, first it should and must sense the channel, okay, or a medium before sending the data or a frame over that channel here. That is, we need to check the energy level at the carrier frequency here. Once you sense the medium, because we people are very much interested to know whether the channel is idle or not, and we people are looking at the energy level at the carrier frequency here. Here we people are using first initially we set this backup to 0 here, and here we people are applying one of the persistent strategy here with the backup until the channel becomes the idle. Either we can apply a one persistent mechanism or a non-persistent, or we can apply a p persistent mechanism also. Once a device or once a node found that a channel is idle, the station doesn't send that information or a data frame immediately. It waits for a diffs period of a time, that is a distributed interframe space time. Then the station sends the control information here, that is a request to send message here. Here, listen. Once we find the channel is idle, the station doesn't send that information immediately. It waits for a diffs period of a time, and it waits for a diffs period of a time, and then it sends the control message, that is a RTS, that is a request to send here. Once the station receives this RTS message, here we people are sending the RTS message, and here we people set a timer here. Suppose if you receive the CTS, that is the control message, that is a clear to send, a message is received before a timeout expires. On that case, the sending station waits for another shifts period of a time. Okay, it waits for a shifts period of a time, that is a short interframe space time. And after that, if the channel is idle, on that case even it sends the frame here and sets a timer again. If it receives the acknowledgement before the timer timeouts, on that case we can say that transmission is a successful one. Suppose in this case, suppose if we didn't hear the CTS in a timeout period, on that case, or if you didn't receive the acknowledgement before the timeout, on that case we people simply increment this backup the backup, that is a timer. If we people are checking here, that is whether this backup time limit has crossed or not. If it is yes, on that case I need to abort this process. Otherwise, the station should and must wait for that a period of a time to access the channel. Once the channel becomes the idle, again it applies for one of the persistent mechanism, Once a channel becomes the idle one, again it waits for a diffs period of a time, and this process continues here. If you look at this particular scenario, once we send the RTS message, we will wait for a short period of a time. Okay. If you look at this particular scenario in the next figure, that shows how the control information takes place between the two stations. Here we have a source and a destination. These are the wireless devices we people are using here. Here the station applies one of the persistent mechanism. It came to know that the channel is idle. It doesn't send the information immediately. It waits for a diffs period of a time, and after that it sends the request to send message here. Once the destination receives this message, the destination waits for a shift period of a time, that is a short interframe space time, and sends the clear to send a message here. Once the source receives this CTS message, again it doesn't send the information immediately here. It waits for a shift period of a time, and after that it sends the actual data here. Once the destination receives this information, again it waits for a shift period of a time and sends the acknowledgement back to the source here. Okay. The point here is how the other station that are a part of this particular network simply stops sending the data, sending their data if one station accesses this particular channel. Okay, that is how we people are avoiding this collision. Here we people are using the concept called NAV, that is the network allocation vector. Whenever a station sends a RTS frame that includes the duration of a time, that is how much period of a time that station is going to access that channel, the nodes that are a part of that network or the nodes that are affected by this particular transmission, they simply set their NAV with that time duration. Okay, the nodes should and must sense the channel if the NAV expires here. If the NAV expires here, in the sense the station should and must refrain themselves away from sending if these stations hear the RTS message from the other station. Okay, the station that hear the RTS message, these are the nodes that are affected by the communication between these two devices, and these devices simply set their NAV with that time duration, that is how much duration these two nodes are going to communicate. And if the one node is willing to send some sort of information before sensing the channel, the node should and must check its NAV, whether that NAV is expired or not. If the NAV is expired, the station should and must able to sense the channel here. Okay. Here we people are having another problem, that is whenever the collision occurs during this the handshake. Okay, maybe we people are sending some sort of a control information, that is a RTS as well as a CTS. We simply call them as the handshaking period. Okay, when a two or more station may try as the stations are far away from each other, they may not able to sense, they may not able to hear the signal from the other station. In certain cases, two or more station may try to send these RTS frames over the channel here. On that case, these control frames collide with each other. Okay, in the sense, if the collision occurs, on that case we may not able to hear the CTS frame from the destination, and once a timeout occurs, the source machine came to know that something went wrong, that is the collision is occurred, and it simply employs that a backup strategy here. And again the sender machine tries sending these RTS control messages again here. The next one we have the PCF, that is a point coordination function. That is the optional access mechanism we have, and this particular access mechanism is implemented whenever we people are using that infrastructure network, that is we have a access point here. Okay. Here this PCF is implemented on top of that distributed coordination function, so that you can provide some sort of a higher priority to this access points here. Okay, that is time sensitive transmissions. In certain cases we need a time sensitive transmission. For that purpose we need to give some sort of a higher priority for those transmissions. Here the PCF is decentralized, it is a contention free. Here we people are using this polling access mechanism. Here the access point polls these stations, okay, in turns here, in the sense one after another. To give some sort of a priority for this PCF over DCF, we people are defining another two interframe space time, that is a PIFs, another one is a SIFs, and that short interframe space time, that is same as we discussed in the previous case. When it comes to this PIFs, that is a PCF interframe space time, that has a shorter than the distributed interframe space time here. Here if a station wants to use only a DCF and an access point wants to use a PCF, on that case we people are providing the priority to the access point here. If you look at this particular picture, here we have a access point that simply polls these other stations. Okay, and as this PCF has a higher priority over this DCF, in a certain cases the stations that are using this DCF may not able to gain access to this medium or a channel here. Just to prevent this problem, what we people are using this a repetition interval that consists of two portion, that is one is a contention free, another one is a contention based services. Here that this repetition interval is repeated continuously, okay, and that starts with sending one spatial frame, that is a PIFs here. Sorry, this beacon frame here. Okay, whenever these station hears this beacon frame, these station or secondary stations or the mobile stations simply sets their NAV here for the durations of a contention free period, free period of the this repetition interval here. Here during this interval, this access point can send a poll frame, as well as it is able to send data, as well as it is able to receive the acknowledgement, or it can do any kind of any combination of these activities. And here at the end of a contention free period, this access point simply sends a CF end frame here that allows other stations to use the contention based in the sense the contention based stations use the medium here. If you look at this particular scenario, this the repetition interval starts with sending this beacon signal. Once this station receives the signal, they simply set their NAVs. Okay. After that, this access point simply waits for a shift period of a time, and after that it polls. Okay. This polling mechanism is nothing but the access point polls this station in turns here, that is one after another. For example, it sends this poll message to the first station that asking if you have any kind of a data to send to the access point, you can send it. In the next interval, this can poll the second station. Okay, in the third case, it can poll the third station also, so on and so forth. If you look at this particular picture, here the access point sends a poll message to the station 1 here. The station 1 receives that a poll message, and it waits for a shift period of a time. Okay, and it sends the data along with the acknowledgement here. Once the access point receives that information, it waits for a shift period of a time and sends the acknowledgement as well as the poll message to the station. Or if it is interested to poll other station, it can send that a poll message to other stations also. Once this contention free interval over, the devices that uses the DCF, they are able to use the channel to send this control information. That is, they are able to use that channel to transmit the data here. Here, when it comes to this the wireless environment, most of the time this wireless environment is very noisy, and whenever we transmit some sort of information, that the frame becomes the corrupt one, and that needs to be retransmitted. For that purpose, the protocol recommends that I need to transmit the information in a smaller chunks. In the sense, I need to fragment the message into number of smaller ones here. That is one efficient mechanism, we can say that. The next one, we have the frame format. Here that the MAC layer frame consists these 9 fields. The first one, we have a frame control. The next one, we have that is of a 2 byte long. The next one, we have a 2 byte longer D field. The next field we have addresses, that is a 6 byte long, address 1, address 2, address 3 and address 4. The next one, we have a sequence control, that is a 2 byte long in length. After that, we have the payload, that is the data bytes that from the these are the payload, that is data bytes from the upper layer. The next one, we are using the FCS field here. The first one, we have the frame control, that is a 2 byte long, that defines the type of a frame as well as some control information. Okay, and that 2 byte long this frame control field consists the number of fields here, that is a protocol version, type, a subtype, a 2DS, from DS, more flag, a retry, the power management, the more data, a WEP, as well as a 1 bit is the last bit is a result. Okay. we people are going to see the meaning of these fields in the next slide. The next field, we have a 2 byte long a D field that that defines the duration of the transmission that is used to set the value of a NAV. Okay, in a one control field, this particular field defines the ID of the frame here. Okay, the next field, we have these 4 addresses, that is address 1, address 2, address 3, as well as the address 4 here. Okay, that are 6 byte long. The meaning of these addresses that are completely dependent on these 2 fields, that is a 2DS as well as a from DS field here. The next one, we have a sequence number that defines the sequence number of a frame, okay, that to be used in a flow control mechanism. The next one, we have a body, that is a frame body, that is around we have around that varies from 0 to 2312 bytes here, that simply that consists of information that is based on the type as well as subtype that are the fields that are defined by this FC field here. The next one, we are using the frame check sequence, that is a FCS 4 byte long. We people are using a standard CRC, that is a CRC 32 bit CRC 32 bit CRC 32. That mechanism is used for error detection purpose here. If you look at this subfields, that is the frame control field that consists of all these subfields here. Okay, that is a 2 byte version, that is a protocol version, 2 bits, 2 bits of a type, 4 bits of a subtype, 1 bit 2 DS from DS, that is a distribution system information we people are having here. Okay, and we people are going through this value or meaning of this field in the this slide here. Okay, that version that defines the current version here. Okay, and the current version is 0 here. The next one, we have a type field. This the type of information we people are having. Either we people are sending a management data, a control data, or actual content. If you are exchanging a management data, on that case, this type field consists of 00, control field, control data 01. If you are sending actual data, on that case, it consists of 10. Okay. Here, we people are going to discuss this subtype field based on what type of the control messages we people are sending. Based on that, we people are setting this subtype field here. Okay, as well as these 2 DS as well as from DS, we people are going to discuss in the next slide. That defines the addresses, how we people are setting this address field here. The next one, that is how we people are filling these addresses, how the communication that can takes place between the stations. Either the station may be a part of a extended service set, or the stations may be a part of a BSS here. Okay. The next one, we have a more flag. When its value is set to 1, that means we have more fragments. The next field, we have a retry. When its value is set to 1, means it's a retransmitted frame. The next one is a power management. When it's set to 1, the station is in a power management mode. The next field, we have a more data. When this bit is set to 1, that provides some sort of a meaning that a station has a more data to send. Here we people are, the next field, we have a WEP, that is a wired equivalent privacy. That is the simple encryption mechanism we people are using. okay, just to provide some sort of a security to our information. And the last 1 bit field information is a reserved here. Here we people are transmitting different types of frames here. That 802.11 defines 3 category of frames here. One is the management frames, control frame, as well as the data frames. Here the management frames that are used for initial communication between the stations and the access points. The control frames that are used for accessing the channel and sending some sort of acknowledgement from this for these frames here. If you look at this the control frame information, we have a 2 byte long a FC field, 2 byte long a D field, a 6 byte long a address 1 and a address 2, and a 4 byte field we people are using a FCS. Okay. In the next one, when it comes to the CTS or acknowledgement frame, that doesn't have a this the address 2 field here. That is the FC field. That is a frame control field. The next 2 bytes are a D field. The next 6 field defines the address field. The next field is a frame check sequence here. Okay, and here we people are going to field the type here. That is, if the subtype field value is a 1011, on that case we people are sending that a request to send message. If the subtype field value is a 1100, that indicates that we are sending a clear to send frame. If it is a 1101, on that case we people are sending the acknowledgement field here. Here when we people are sending some sort of the control frames here, the value of this particular type field is set to 01. That is what kind of a message, what kind of a information we people are sending. For control information 01, if we are sending the actual data, it is set to 10. Okay. The data frames are also used to carry the data as well as the control information here. The next one, what kind of addressing mechanism we people are using here. Here the 802.11 mechanism, we people are having these 4 cases here. Okay. That is 2DS and from DS. Okay. If you look at this possible values 00, 01, 10, 11, on that case we people are defining the addresses here. That is address 1, address 2, address 3 and address 4 here. Okay. If you look at this the first case, that is a 2DS field, it is set to 0, and from DS field is set to 0. Okay. If you look at this particular scenario, the one station is sending the data to another station. Okay, and these 2 stations are resides in a same BSS here. Okay, on that case we people are just filling these 3 entries. That is address 1, address 2 and address 3. The address 1 consists of destination address, address 2 consists of source address, and address 3 consists this BSS ID here. Okay, and we people are not at all filling this a 4th address here. If a 2 DS field is 0 and from DS field is a 1 here. Here this is the second case. Okay, here this access point is sending a data frame to the this station here. Okay, here the access point is sending a frame to the BSS. On that case The first field, we people are defining the address of a destination. The second address consists address of a access point. The third address consists the address of the station here. That is the source. Okay, which particular station, that is a source, is sending this particular frame to this particular station. Okay. The next case, we have the to address field is set to 1 and a from address field is set to 0. On that case, we people are having the receiving access point. The second address field consists of source address, and the third address field consists of the destination address. And here we people are not at all filling the fourth address field here. If you look at this particular scenario, that is a third case. Here the node that is residing in this one BSS is sending the information to another station that is residing in another BSS here. And when it comes to communication between these two nodes, that should and must be takes place through this access point only. For that purpose, the first address field is nothing but a access point address. The second field consists of the source address, and the third field consists the destination address here. Okay. Here, if you look at this particular scenario, that is a case 1. The station B sends an acknowledgement to the station A here. In the second case, the station B sends the acknowledgement to the access point here. In the third case, the access point sends the acknowledgement to the this BSS here. Okay, we people are not at all defining a fourth the fourth address in all these first 3 cases here. The next one, we have when this to DS as well as from DS fields are set to 1. On that case, the first address field consists of receiving access point. The second address field consists of the address of a sending access point. The third address field consists of the destination, and the fourth address consists of the source address. Okay, in the sense, the one access point is sending the information over this distribution system here. That is, a one access point is sending the the message to the access point to here. Okay, here we need not necessarily to define the addresses. If this distribution system is a wired LAN, okay, because the frame in this cases has the format of a wired LAN frame only. Okay, otherwise we should and must define the addresses here. Okay, take a welcome back. In the here we people are going to discuss about the hidden station problem. If you look at this particular picture, here a node B has its own transmission range. Okay, that is the oval shape that is shown in this particular picture. Okay, the nodes that are in this particular region are able to hear whatever the data that is sent by this particular station B here. Okay, this is the range of a node C here. Okay, whereas node A lies in between them. Consider a station B is communicating with a station A here. Okay, here whenever station B sends the information to station A, the nodes that resides in this particular range, that is a range of a B, they simply came to know that a station B is communicating with A here, and they simply reframe themselves away from the sending data over a network here. But if you look at this particular node, that is a node C, that is that particular node C is outside of this communication range. That is a range of a node B here. Okay. At that particular stage, the node A senses the channel and it came to know that the channel is idle. Okay. Even it starts transmitting the data to the station here. On that case, the at this particular node, that is at node A, a collision takes place here. The one solution, that is nothing but a node B as well as node C are hidden from each other with respect to this node A here. The one solution, what solution we people are using, that is sending the control information, that is the RTS as well as the CTS messages. Okay. Whenever the node sends the RTS message, the node A receives it, and once the node sends the CTS message, the station C also receives that this clear to send a message here. Once the station C receives the CTS message, it came to know that a node A is busy in communication with some other node, and node C stops sending data to station A here. The next one, we have the exposed station problem here. Consider node A is sending this is the node A is sending some sort of information or data to node B. Okay. Whereas node C is willing to communicate with a node D here. Okay. If you look at the range of these devices, node B has its own transmission range. Okay. Node C has its own transmission range, whereas node B as well as node C lies within the transmission range of node A here. Okay. Whereas the node A is sending the data to node B, as well as node C is willing to send some sort of a data to node here. When it comes to this exposed station problem, even though the station C is not at all willing to disturb the communication between node A and B, the channel is idle here, but still the station simply keep itself away from sending the data to node D here. That is nothing but the exposed station problem we people are having here. Here, if you look at this particular scenario, station A sends a RTS message. Station A sends a RTS message to node B, that is a request to send here. Okay. The same request message reaches the node C here, because station C lies in the range of a node E here. Okay. The node C came to know that the station A is willing to communicate with station B here. Okay. The station C sends the CTS message, that is this clear to send message to the node A. Okay. This CTS message doesn't reach station C here, because the station B is station C is completely outside of the communication range of a B here. Okay. Here the station C waits until the station A receives this CTS message. Once the station A receives a CTS message, it transmits the data here. Okay. At the same time, the node C also sends the RTS message here. Okay. If you look at this particular node, if you look at this particular situation, okay, the node A is already in a transmission mode, that is, it is sending actual data, whereas it is not at all able to receive this RTS message here. Okay. And when the station sends the data, the node C also receives the data, or even it hears the data from A here. Okay, whereas the node C receives the CTS frame from the station D here, where the station D came to know that the channel is idle as well as it is willing to communicate with the station C. It assigns a CTS frame here, and at this particular stage the collision takes place here. Okay, here if a station A has started sending its data, the station C cannot hear this CTS frame here. Okay, where a CTS frame from the station D here, because the collision occurs. Okay, it cannot send the data to the D here. Okay, that is nothing but it remains exposed until A finishes its sending its data here. The next one we have the physical layer. Here we people are trying to define what mechanism we people are using at the physical layer, so that we can transmit some sort of information over the physical channel. Okay, here the 802.11 defines a different standards or a technique for the transmission of bits over a channel here. Okay, we can use the frequency hopping spread spectrum, or we can use a direct sequence spread spectrum, or we can use a infrared mechanism, or we can use a OFDM, that is a orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, or with a different modulation scheme. Okay, here we have a 802.11 has defined different standards here, that is a 802.11, 802.11a, 802.11b, 802.11g, as well as 802. Nowadays we people are using a 802.11 n here. Okay, this is the band, what band we people are using. Okay, here that FHSS mechanism, that is a frequency hopping spread spectrum mechanism, uses a 2.4 gigahertz of a band with a modulation technique of a FSK, that is a frequency shift keying here. Okay, and we people are able to achieve the data rate of a 1 Mbps or a 2 Mbps here. Okay, suppose if you are using a direct sequence spread spectrum, even that mechanism uses a 2.4 gigahertz of a band with a phase shift keying mechanism, that is a modulation scheme, where we people are able to achieve 1 and 2 Mbps of a data rate here. Infrared mechanism that uses a pulse position modulation mechanism, where we people are able to achieve the data rates up to 2 Mbps. In case of 802.11a, we people are using a OFDM technique, that is a orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. Here we people are using a frequency band of 5.725 gigahertz. Here we people are using the PSK or a QAM modulation technique, and we people are able to achieve the data rate from 6 Mbps to 64 Mbps. 802.11 uses a DSS mechanism that uses the same frequency band of 2.4 gigahertz, and we are using the phase shift keying mechanism, and we people are able to achieve 5.5 Mbps to 11 Mbps data rate here. And the 802.11g, that is a OFDM, we people are using a OFDM technique, and 2.4 gigahertz of band we people are using, and the different modulation scheme we people are using just to achieve 22 to 54 Mbps of a data rate here. This is the ISM band, that is a industrial, scientific and medical band we people are using. This is an unlicensed one. Okay, you can use this band to transmit the information. Okay, not necessary to purchase to transmit. Not necessary to purchase these bands from the government. Okay, so that you can transmit your information over these bands. That is a 902 to 928 megahertz, that is a 26 megahertz band we people are using. Here we people are using a band of 2.4 gigahertz. Okay, the next one we people are using a 5.725 gigahertz of bandwidth here. Okay, that is, if you look at the available bandwidth, we have 26 megahertz, 83.5 megahertz, 125 megahertz of bandwidth we people are having here. Here, when it comes to the first one, that is a 802.11 FHSS mechanism that uses a frequency hopping spread spectrum method. Okay, here this FHSS mechanism uses a 2.4 gigahertz of ISM band. In turn, that a band is divided into 79 subbands here. Okay, yeah, each of 1 megahertz. Okay, and we people these bands are separated by guard bands. Here we have a pseudo random generator. Okay, that selects a hopping sequence. Okay, and the modulation technique in this case, either we people are using a 2-level or a 4-level FSK. Okay, one or we can use a 1 bit or 2 bits per baud here. In turn, that results the data rate around 1 Mbps or 2 Mbps here. In turn, we people are generating an analog signal of 1 megahertz here. The next one, we have a 802.11 that uses a direct sequence spread spectrum. Here we people are using a 11 bit chipping sequence. Excuse me, we call that one as a Barker sequence. Okay, here this DSS mechanism also uses the same frequency band, that is a 2.4 gigahertz of ISM band here. And here the modulation technique we people are using, that is the PSK, that is a phase shift keying mechanism at the rate of 1 megabaud per second, that allows 1 or 2 bits per baud here. And here we people are using this modulation technique, that is a binary phase shift keying mechanism or a quadrature phase shift keying mechanism here, so that we are able to achieve the data rates around up to 1 or 2 Mbps here. The next one, we have a infrared. The 802.11 infrared uses infrared light here. Okay, in the range of 800 to 950 nanometer. The modulation technique what we people are using in this case here is that is a pulse position modulation. Okay, suppose for a 1 Mbps of a data rate, suppose if you are able to achieve a 1 Mbps of a data rate, on that case this a 4-bit sequence is mapped to a 16-bit sequence. Okay, here only 1 bit is set to 1 and the remaining bits are set to 0. this 4-bit information is mapped onto a 16-bit information. That is, we people are using a encoder, that is a 4 to 16 encoder or 2 bits to n encoder, 4 bit encoder here. Okay, this 4-bit information is mapped to a 16-bit information, in which the first bit, only one bit is set to 1 and the remaining all bits are set to zeros. Suppose if you are able to achieve a 2 Mbps, a 2-bit sequence is mapped into 4-bit sequence, okay, in which the first bit is set to 1 and the remaining bits are set to zeros here. Okay, and after that this mapped information is converted to a optical signal, and the presence of a light specifies the 1 and the absence of a light specifies the 0 here. The next one, we people are having a OFDM technique. This is a 802.11 11A OFDM technique that uses orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, okay, for a signal generation in a 5 gigahertz of a ISM band. Okay, this OFDM is very similar to frequency division multiplexing. Okay. All these subbands are used by one source at a time here. Okay. These sources content with another at the data link layer for accessing. Okay. The band is divided here 52 subbands with 48 subbands for sending 48 groups of bits at a time, and 4 subbands are used for control information here. Okay. Dividing this band into subbands, that diminishes the effect of interference here. If these subbands are used randomly, on that case we can increase the security also. Here when it comes to this OFDM, that uses a phase shift keying and a QAM mechanism for the modulation, that is a quadrature amplitude modulation technique, where we people are able to achieve around 18 Mbps of a data rate with a phase shift keying mechanism and 54 Mbps of a data rate with a QAM modulation technique here. The next one, we have a 802.11b, that is a that uses a DSS, that is a direct sequence spread spectrum mechanism here. Okay. Here we people are able to achieve the data rates around 5.5 Mbps to 11 Mbps. Okay. Here this particular DSS describes the high rate DSS mechanism for a signal generation in the 2.4 gigahertz of ISM band here. Okay. This HR, that is a high rate DSSS mechanism, is similar to DSS, that is a direct sequence spread spectrum, except for the encoding mechanism. Okay. Here we people are using this coding mechanism called a complementary code keying, that is a CCK. Okay, that encodes 4 bits. That listen, this CCK encodes 4 or 8 bits to one CCK symbol here. Okay, and to be a backward compatible with the DSS, this HRDSSS defines 4 different data types: 1, 2, 5.5, as well as 11 Mbps. Okay. The first two use the same modulation technique as a DSS. The 5.5 Mbps version uses the binary phase shift keying mechanism and transmit the data at the rate of 1.375 megabaud per second with a 4-bit CCK encoding. And when it comes to 11 Mbps version, it uses a quadrature phase shift keying mechanism, that is a modulation purpose, and that transmits the information at the rate of 1.375 Mbps with 8-bit CCK encoding here. Another one is we are using a 802.11g. Okay, this particular specification defines the forward error correction as well as OFDM that uses a 2.4 gigahertz of a ISM band. Okay, with this modulation technique, we are able to achieve 22 Mbps of a data or a 54 Mbps of a data rate here. Even it is a backward compatible with a 802.11b here, but the modulation technique here is OFDM. Okay, in the next class, we people are going to discuss about the Bluetooth. Thank you.